Bear Cub was lost in a haunted house. What this baby did was shocking. Let us know where you're watching from. If you love my content, consider supporting it with a super thanks. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. It'll help us to remain in touch with amazing people like you. A chilling wind swept through the dense forest as twilight descended. The ancient Blackwood mansion stood ominously at the edge of the wilderness, its weathered stone walls and Gothic spires reaching toward the gathering storm clouds. Local legends whispered that the mansion was cursed, abandoned decades ago after the mysterious disappearance of the Blackwood family during a terrible blizzard. Now, nature was slowly reclaiming the once grand estate, ivy climbing its walls and forest creatures occasionally finding shelter within its crumbling rooms. Olivia Chen balanced her 11-month-old daughter, Luna, on her hip as she photographed the mansion's elaborate entrance. Her husband, Noah, consulted a weathered map, his brow furrowed with concentration. The young family hadn't planned to visit the notorious Blackwood mansion during their camping trip, but when the storm warnings came through, they needed shelter fast. The rangers had mentioned this old place might provide temporary refuge until morning. The park ranger said no one's owned this property for 30 years, Noah explained, glancing nervously at the darkening sky. We should be fine to camp in the groundskeeper's cottage for the night. It's supposed to be more stable than the main house. Olivia nodded, though her eyes never left the mansion's broken windows, which seemed to watch them like hollow eyes. Little Luna cooed softly, her round face illuminated by the last rays of sunlight filtering through the clouds. Unlike her parents, Luna showed no fear, only wonder at the imposing structure before them. Deep within the forest behind the mansion, a mother bear and her cub foraged for berries before the storm arrived. The cub, whom we'll call Rusty for his reddish-brown fur, playfully swatted at butterflies while his mother diligently searched for food. When thunder rumbled in the distance, the mother bear grunted, a signal for Rusty to stay close. But Rusty, distracted by a colorful bird, wandered deeper into the underbrush. By the time the first raindrops fell, Rusty realized he had strayed too far. The forest had grown darker, unfamiliar. He called for his mother, but the rising wind carried his cries away. Frightened and confused, Rusty continued forward, hoping to find his way back. Instead, he found himself approaching a strange, cave-like structure, the dilapidated service entrance of Blackwood Mansion. The rain fell harder now, driving Rusty toward the only shelter he could find. The small bear cub squeezed through a broken basement window, tumbling onto the dusty floor of the mansion's forgotten cellar. His wet fur collected cobwebs as he shook himself, eyes wide with uncertainty in the unfamiliar darkness. Outside, Olivia and Noah had settled into the groundskeeper's cottage, a small stone building about 50 yards from the main house. They had set up a makeshift bed for Luna in a travel crib, surrounded by battery-powered lanterns that cast a warm glow against the cottage walls. The storm raged outside, rain lashing against the windows and thunder shaking the very foundation. "I don't like this place," Olivia whispered as she prepared a bottle for Luna. "Did you hear what the ranger said about the disappearances?" Noah's face tightened with concern. "Those are just stories, Liv. We'll be fine for one night." But his eyes darted toward the window, through which the looming silhouette of the mansion was occasionally illuminated by lightning. Luna, however, seemed oddly alert. Her tiny hands reached toward the cottage window, her eyes fixed on the mansion as if she could see something her parents could not. When Olivia placed her in the crib, Luna began to fuss, unusual for their typically easygoing baby. "What's wrong, little Moonbeam?" Olivia stroked Luna's cheek, but the baby continued to stare at the window, making small sounds of distress. Inside the mansion, Rusty had begun exploring the vast, decaying interior. The cellar stairs had led him to a grand entrance hall, where rain now leaked through holes in the ceiling, creating small puddles on the marble floor. The bear cub's natural curiosity momentarily overcame his fear as he sniffed around overturned furniture and tattered curtains. A sudden crash from above sent Rusty scurrying under an antique sofa. The mansion seemed to be coming alive around him. Creaking floorboards, rattling windows, and strange whistling sounds as wind rushed through broken glass. To the frightened cub, each noise became more menacing than the last. Rusty's whimpers echoed through the empty halls. He was cold, wet, and terrified. In the darkness, the mansion's shadows seemed to move of their own accord. The cub's cries grew more desperate as he huddled beneath the sofa, longing for his mother's warmth and protection. Unknown to both the bear cub and the human family, something else stirred within Blackwood Mansion, something that had slumbered for decades, awakening only occasionally when living souls entered its domain. The locals called it the Blackwood Presence, a collection of spirits bound to the house through tragedy. Neither malevolent nor benevolent, these ethereal remnants of the past simply existed, trapped between worlds. As midnight approached, Luna's fussing turned to determined wails. Noah paced the cottage floor with his daughter, bewildered by her unusual behavior. "She's not wet, she's not hungry," he reported to an equally concerned Olivia. "Maybe she's sensing the storm." But Luna's eyes remained fixed on the window facing the mansion, her tiny hands reaching outward as if trying to grasp something just beyond her reach. Her cries possessed an urgency that neither parent had ever heard before, not the cry of discomfort or hunger, but something deeper, more primal. In that moment, a particularly violent gust of wind rattled the cottage door, pushing it open with a bang. The sudden draft extinguished 2 of their lanterns, plunging the cottage into partial darkness. Noah rushed to close the door, but not before Luna had locked eyes with the looming mansion, now bathed in moonlight as the clouds momentarily parted. A connection formed, innocent, inexplicable, powerful. Luna's cries suddenly stopped, replaced by an intent focus that seemed impossible for an infant her age. Something was calling to her from within those weathered walls, something that needed help, a kindred innocence lost in darkness. And deep within the mansion, Rusty the bear cub sensed it too. His ears perked up, his whimpers quieting as he emerged from beneath the sofa. The Blackwood presence swirled around him, neither threatening nor comforting, but somehow connecting. 2 innocent souls, one human, one animal, both vulnerable, both special in ways the adult world could never understand. And between them, the ancient spirits of Blackwood Mansion watched, waited, and prepared to witness something extraordinary unfold in the storm-swept night. What would happen when these 2 souls finally met? And what forces, natural or supernatural, might stand in their way? The storm intensified as midnight passed, transforming the woods around Blackwood Mansion into a chaotic symphony of howling winds and lashing rain. Inside the groundskeeper's cottage, Noah finally managed to soothe Luna to sleep, though her rest was fitful. Every few minutes, the baby would stir, her tiny features contorting as if caught in a dream, too complex for her undeveloped mind. "She's never like this," Olivia whispered, stroking Luna's downy hair. "It's like she's trying to tell us something." Noah squeezed his wife's shoulder reassuringly, though his own unease had grown with each passing hour. "The storm will pass by morning. We'll head back to town first thing." But as they spoke, another flash of lightning illuminated the cottage window, revealing a massive silhouette moving through the trees toward the mansion. A large bear, its powerful form unmistakable even through the curtain of rain. Mother Bear had tracked her cub's scent to the edge of the forest, her maternal instincts driving her forward despite the dangerous conditions. "Noah," Olivia gasped, clutching her husband's arm. "Did you see that?" Noah peered through the rain-streaked glass but saw only darkness. "See what?" "I think there was a bear out there. A big one," Olivia said, her voice tight with fear. "It was heading toward the mansion." Noah's face paled. They had been warned about wildlife in the area, but a bear this close was unexpected and alarming. "We need to stay inside, keep quiet, and wait until morning," he decided firmly. "Bears don't usually approach human structures unless they're desperate." What they couldn't know, was exactly how desperate this particular bear had become. Inside the mansion, Rusty had made his way from the grand entrance hall to what once had been the library. Rows of rotting bookshelves lined the walls, their contents long ruined by exposure to the elements. The bear cub had found a relatively dry corner beneath a massive oak desk, where he curled into a tight ball of misery. His hunger and fear had transformed into a deep, primal longing for his mother's protection. The Blackwood presence sensed the cub's distress. The spiritual energy that lingered in the mansion gathered around Rusty, manifesting as subtle temperature changes and whispered sounds just beyond the range of normal hearing. For decades, these spirits had observed the occasional trespassers with detached curiosity, but something about the bear cub's innocent suffering stirred them differently. In the cottage, Luna suddenly awoke with a start, her eyes wide and alert. Before either parent could react, she began making a strange, cooing sound. Not crying, but a deliberate, almost communicative series of noises. Her tiny hands reached toward the mansion once again, with such intent purpose that Olivia and Noah exchanged worried glances. "Maybe she's running a fever," Noah suggested, placing his palm against Luna's forehead. "She doesn't feel hot, though." Olivia lifted Luna from her makeshift crib, cradling her close. "Something's bothering her. She's never acted this way before." As if in response, Luna's cooing grew more insistent. At the same time, a sudden gust of wind rattled the cottage windows with such force that one of the shutters broke loose, banging violently against the wall. The remaining lantern flickered and died, plunging the family into darkness. "The emergency flashlight is in my backpack," Noah said, fumbling his way across the room. "Stay with Luna." But in that moment of confusion and darkness, something extraordinary happened. Luna, still in her mother's arms, began to glow with a faint bluish light, so subtle that Olivia thought at first it was a trick of her eyes adjusting to the darkness. The soft luminescence seemed to emanate from within the baby, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. "Noah," Olivia whispered, her voice trembling. "Something's happening to Luna." Noah turned, flashlight in hand, and froze at the sight of his gently glowing daughter. The light was subtle but unmistakable, a soft aura that outlined Luna's small form. That's not possible," he stammered. Luna, however, showed no distress. If anything, she seemed calmer than she had all evening, her eyes fixed on the mansion with an expression of peculiar determination. The glow faded as quickly as it had appeared, leaving both parents questioning what they had seen. It must have been the lightning, Noah reasoned, though there had been no lightning flash for several minutes. Or reflection from the flashlight. Olivia wasn't convinced, but she had no alternative explanation. Whatever it was, she seems calmer now. Indeed, Luna had settled, though her gaze remained locked on the window facing the mansion. Outside, unknown to her parents, the mother bear had reached the mansion's grounds. The massive animal prowled around the perimeter, sniffing at the stone foundation and growling softly. She could sense her cub was inside, but the unfamiliar structure and lingering human sense made her hesitate at the threshold. Inside the mansion, Rusty had begun to explore again, driven by hunger and the strange sense that he wasn't alone. As he padded through the library doorway into a long corridor lined with tarnished portraits, he failed to notice the rotting floorboard beneath his paw. With a splintering crack, the wood gave way, and Rusty tumbled through the floor into a narrow space between the walls. The cub's frightened wail echoed through the mansion's hollow bones. He had fallen into a secret passage, one of many built into the house by the paranoid original owner. Too narrow for adult humans, but perfect for a small bear cub, the passage was a tight fit as Rusty scrambled to find footing on the steep, dusty incline. His momentum carried him downward, sliding through years of dust and cobwebs until he emerged into a hidden room deep beneath the mansion's east wing. This room was different from the rest of the decaying mansion. Protected from the elements by its subterranean location, it remained almost perfectly preserved. A child's nursery, untouched for decades. Faded wallpaper depicting woodland creatures peeled slightly at the seams, and a collection of antique toys sat arranged on tiny shelves. In the center stood an ornate cradle, its blankets still neatly arranged as if awaiting an infant who never arrived. The Blackwood presence was strongest here. As Rusty cautiously explored the nursery, the spiritual energy coalesced into visible wisps of pale mist, swirling around the cradle with mournful purpose. The bear cub froze, instinctively sensing that he was in the presence of something beyond his understanding. From one of the shelves, a small music box suddenly activated of its own accord. Its delicate melody, Brahms' lullaby, filled the room with tinkling notes that seemed to calm the frightened cub. Rusty approached the cradle, drawn by an impulse he couldn't name, and climbed inside. The ancient wood creaked beneath his weight but held firm as the cub curled up on the soft blankets, soothed by the unexpected comfort. In the groundskeeper's cottage, Luna's behavior changed again. The moment the music box began to play in the hidden nursery, the baby's eyes widened. She lifted her tiny hand, opening and closing her fingers as if reaching for something only she could see. And then, to her parents' astonishment, she spoke her first word. Bear. Olivia nearly dropped the Luna in shock. Did she just... She said bear, Noah confirmed, his face a mixture of pride and confusion. But how? She's never even seen a bear before. A thunderous crash from outside interrupted their amazement. The mother bear, growing increasingly desperate to reach her cub, had begun attacking the mansion's back entrance, her powerful paws splintering the rotted wood of an old service door. Noah peered through the cottage window, using the flashlight to cut through the darkness. "There is a bear," he exclaimed. "A huge one. It's trying to get into the mansion." Olivia clutched Luna tighter. "What do we do? Should we call the Rangers?" Noah pulled out his cell phone, but as expected, there was no signal in the remote location during the storm. No reception. The radio in the car might work, but I'd have to go outside. "You can't go out there with that bear," Olivia protested. As they argued, neither noticed that Luna had begun to glow again, the soft blue luminescence returning, stronger this time. The baby squirmed in her mother's arms, reaching toward the window with increased urgency. "Bear," she repeated, more insistently. "Bear!" The temperature in the cottage suddenly dropped, their breath forming clouds in the chilled air. The flashlight flickered, and in that moment, both adults felt an inexplicable sensation, as if they were not alone. The same spiritual presence that haunted the mansion had extended its reach to the cottage, drawn by the unusual connection between Luna and Rusty. "Something's not right here," Noah whispered, instinctively moving closer to his family. "I feel like we're being watched." Olivia nodded, unable to speak as she observed a strange phenomenon unfolding before her eyes. The space between Luna and the window seemed to shimmer, like heat waves rising from summer pavement. Within that distortion, fleeting images appeared and disappeared. A woman in Victorian clothing, cradling an empty blanket, a man with a grave expression, boarding up windows, and most disturbingly a cradle, the exact same cradle where Rusty now lay within the mansion. "Do you see that?" Olivia gasped. Noah could only nod, his scientific mind struggling to process what his eyes were witnessing. "It's like the house is showing us something." Luna seemed unsurprised by the visions, her eyes tracking the apparitions with calm recognition. When the image of the cradle appeared most clearly, she pointed directly at it. "Bear?" she said for the third time, with such conviction that both parents fell silent. Outside, the mother bear had succeeded in breaking through the service entrance. Her massive form disappeared into the mansion's dark interior, her growls echoing through the empty halls as she followed her cub's scent. The storm reached its peak intensity, rain falling in sheets so dense they obscured the view of the mansion entirely. In the hidden nursery, Rusty lifted his head at the distant sound of his mother's calls, but something kept him from responding immediately. A feeling of anticipation, as if he were waiting for something important to happen. The music box continued its gentle melody, and the mist-like presence swirled more rapidly around the cradle, forming patterns that resembled reaching hands. Then, a new sound cut through the storm and the lullaby, the distinctive cry of a human baby, somehow audible despite the distance and barriers between the cottage and the hidden room. Luna's voice, amplified by forces beyond natural explanation, reached Rusty's sensitive ears. The bear cub stood up in the cradle, his fear momentarily forgotten as he listened to the strangely comforting sound. In that moment, the connection between baby and bear cub solidified into something tangible. The Blackwood presence had found a purpose after decades of aimless haunting, to bring these two innocent souls together, though for what end remained unclear. Back in the cottage, Noah made a decision. "We need to leave. Now. Something is very wrong here, and I don't want to find out what happens next." He began gathering their essential belongings, stuffing them haphazardly into a backpack. "We'll make a run for the car. It's only about 50 yards away." Olivia hesitated. "What about the bear?" "It's inside the mansion now. This might be our only chance." Noah zipped up the backpack and slung it over his shoulder. "I'll carry Luna. You bring the flashlight and the car keys." They prepared to leave, wrapping Luna in an extra blanket to protect her from the rain. But as Noah reached for the cottage door, Luna began to wail. Not her usual cry of hunger or discomfort, but a sound of genuine distress, as if she were being denied something vital. She doesn't want to leave, Olivia realized, trying to comfort their increasingly agitated daughter. Noah's expression hardened with resolve. "We don't have a choice. It's not safe here." He pulled open the door, and a gust of wind and rain immediately assaulted them. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the path to their vehicle, and revealing a shocking sight that made both parents gasp in horror. Between the cottage and their car stood 3 translucent figures, the ghostly forms of a man, a woman, and a small child, their outdated clothing and somber expressions identifying them as the long-lost Blackwood family. They made no threatening moves, but their presence formed an unmistakable barrier between the Chen family and escape. At the same moment, inside the mansion, the mother bear had followed her cub's scent to the library, but could go no further. The hole in the floor that had dropped Rusty into the secret passage was far too small for her massive body. Her frustrated roars shook dust from the ceiling as she paced frantically, sensing her cub was close but unable to reach him. In the hidden nursery, Rusty trembled at the sound of his mother's distress. The music box played faster, its melody becoming almost frantic, as the mist-like presence swirled ever more urgently around the cradle. The bear cub looked up at the ceiling, then back toward the secret passage entrance, caught between his instinct to respond to his mother and the mysterious force urging him to stay. A single question hung in the storm-charged air. What powerful force was manipulating these events, and what would it take to reunite both mother and cub and allow the human family to escape? The answer lay somehow with baby Luna, whose extraordinary connection to this place and to Rusty was only beginning to reveal its true nature and purpose. The storm raged on as midnight gave way to the early hours of morning, with the mansion standing as a nexus between the living and the dead, the human and animal worlds, and at the center of it all, an 11-month-old baby with glowing blue eyes and a lost bear cub nestled in a cradle that had waited decades for precisely this moment. Noah pulled the cottage door closed against the howling wind, his mind racing as he processed what they had just witnessed. The ghostly figures remained outside, unmoving despite the tempest that should have dispersed any normal fog or light trick. "Those can't be real," he insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. "There has to be a scientific explanation." Olivia sat heavily on the edge of their makeshift bed, Luna still fussing in her arms. "Noah, I think we need to consider that something supernatural is happening here. First, Luna glowing, then those visions, and now." She couldn't bring herself to say the word ghosts. As if to underscore the impossibility of their situation, the temperature in the cottage dropped further. Their breath clouded before them, and a thin layer of frost began forming on the inside of the windows. Impossible, given the summer night, even with the storm. Luna had stopped crying and was now watching the frost patterns with intense fascination. The delicate ice crystals weren't forming randomly. They were creating intricate pictures across the glass. A mother bear, a cub, a cradle, and most disturbingly what appeared to be a map of the mansion's interior. "Look," Olivia whispered, pointing to the frost images. "It's like it's trying to show us something." Noah approached the window cautiously. His scientific mind desperately sought rational explanations, but none came. "It looks like it's showing us how to get to the east wing of the mansion." Luna reached toward the frost map, her tiny fingers leaving 5 small melted spots on the glass. The moment she touched the window, a new sound became audible over the storm. The distant melody of the music box from the hidden nursery, somehow carrying across the grounds despite the howling wind. "Do you hear that?" Olivia asked. Noah nodded slowly. "It sounds like a music box." He studied his daughter's determined expression. "Luna seems to want us to follow it." "Follow it? Into the mansion? With a bear inside?" Olivia's voice rose with incredulity. "Noah, that's insane!" Before Noah could respond, a sharp crack split the air. Not thunder, but the sound of splintering wood from the direction of the mansion. The mother bear's frustrated attempts to reach her cub had caused structural damage to the already weakened building. Even from their distance, they could hear the ominous groaning of support beams giving way. The mansion's starting to collapse, Noah realized. If there's a bear cub inside, it'll be crushed. Luna became more agitated, the blue glow returning to outline her small body. "Bear!" she repeated emphatically, her little face contorted with urgency. "Bear! Bear!" The ghostly figures outside the cottage window moved for the first time, turning in unison toward the mansion. The spectral child, a girl of perhaps 5 or 6, raised her translucent hand to point at the same section of the mansion depicted in the frost map. Olivia looked from the ghosts to her glowing daughter, then to her husband. "Noah, I think we're meant to help the bear cub. It's trapped in there, in danger, and for whatever reason, Luna is connected to it. Noah ran a hand through his hair, his expression torn between protective instinct and moral obligation. Even if that's true, we can't risk Luna's safety. And how would we get past both a full-grown bear and those, whatever they are, outside? As if in answer, the cottage door swung open on its own, revealing a surprising sight. The storm continued to rage all around them, but a narrow path from the cottage to the mansion now stood perfectly calm, a corridor of absolute stillness cutting through the chaotic weather. The ghostly figures had moved to form a line along this path, as if to guide them. More astonishing still was the sight of the mother bear. The massive animal had emerged from the mansion and now stood at the far end of the calm corridor, watching them with an intensity that transcended normal animal behavior. She made no aggressive moves, though her distress was evident in her posture and the low, mournful sound she made. "She's asking for our help," Olivia whispered in awe. "Noah, I know this is impossible, but I think she knows we can reach her cub when she can't." Noah looked from the bear to the ghosts to his glowing daughter, his world view crumbling in the face of the inexplicable. "If we do this, and I can't believe I'm even considering it, we go together. I won't let you or Luna out of my sight." Olivia nodded, wrapping Luna more securely in her blanket. "The moment anything seems dangerous, we leave. Supernatural phenomena or not, a mother bear is still dangerous." They stepped tentatively onto the calm path, expecting at any moment for the storm to engulf them or the bear to charge. Neither happened. Instead, Luna's blue glow intensified, illuminating their way more effectively than the flashlight Noah clutched in his trembling hand. The mother bear watched their approach with unnerving intelligence, then turned and lumbered back toward the mansion's service entrance, pausing to look back as if ensuring they were following. The ghostly figures dissolved into mist as the Chen family passed them, reforming behind them like sentinels closing a gate. "I don't think we can turn back now even if we wanted to," Noah observed grimly. They followed the bear into the mansion, entering through the shattered service door into what had once been a kitchen. Decades of abandonment had reduced the space to a hollow shell, with mold-covered countertops and rusted appliances from another era. The bear led them through this room and into a grand hallway, where evidence of her frantic search was visible in claw marks along the walls and overturned furniture. Luna remained calm in Olivia's arms, her glow providing an eerie blue light that cast long shadows through the decaying interior. Occasionally, she would point in a specific direction, inevitably the same way the mother bear was already heading. They reached the library where Rusty had fallen through the floor. The bear paced anxiously around the jagged hole, looking down into the darkness, then back at the humans with clear expectation. Noah crouched carefully near the edge, shining his flashlight into the opening. "There's some kind of passage down there," he reported. "Too small for the bear, but—" He glanced at Luna, understanding dawning on his face. "Small enough for Luna to fit through?" "Absolutely not." Olivia clutched their daughter tighter. "We are not sending our baby into a hole in the floor of a collapsing mansion." As they argued, the building groaned ominously around them. Dust and small pieces of plaster rained down from the ceiling. The structural damage was accelerating, and they had minutes, perhaps only seconds, before a major collapse. The mother bear grew more agitated, her mournful calls turning to frustrated growls. She approached Olivia with surprising gentleness, sniffing at Luna and whining softly. Luna, for her part, seemed entirely unafraid of the massive predator. She reached out toward the bear, babbling excitedly, the word bear mixed with unintelligible sounds. The blue glow surrounding her extended to brush against the bear's fur, creating a startling effect. Wherever the light touched, the bear's fur momentarily turned translucent, revealing a connection of glowing threads that led down through the floor toward the hidden nursery. They're connected somehow, Noah whispered, witnessing the phenomenon. Luna and the cub. A violent crack from above sent a ceiling beam crashing down just feet from where they stood. The mother bear roared in alarm, backing away from the humans but still casting desperate glances at the hole in the floor. "We're out of time," Noah said urgently. "We need to leave now, or none of us will make it out." Olivia looked from the hole to the bear to their daughter, torn between impossible choices. Luna's determined expression made the decision for her. "We can't leave the cub to die," she said softly, "but I'm not sending Luna down there." Before Noah could respond, the bluish glow surrounding Luna intensified dramatically, expanding outward to fill the entire room with ethereal light. Within this illumination, the ghostly figures from outside reappeared. The Victorian-era family, now clearly visible in their period clothing. The woman stepped forward, her translucent hands extended toward Luna. To the parents' astonishment, the ghostly woman began to speak, her voice sounding distant, yet clearly audible. "Elizabeth was taken from us during the storm. We couldn't save her." The spectral woman's sorrowful gaze moved from Luna to the hole in the floor. "She waits still, in the nursery we built to protect her." The ghostly man joined his wife. "For 70 years we've waited for another innocent to help her find peace. Your child has the gift. The sight beyond the veil, she can see what was lost." Noah and Olivia exchanged bewildered glances. "Elizabeth?" Noah asked. "Your daughter?" The ghostly woman nodded solemnly. "Born during the Great Blizzard of 1954. The cold took her before she drew her second breath. We couldn't bear to leave her, even after our own passing." Another violent shudder ran through the mansion. A window shattered somewhere nearby, and the howling of the storm grew louder. The mother bear roared in distress, pacing frantically around the room. The spectral child, Elizabeth, approached Luna, reaching out with translucent fingers that almost touched the living baby's cheek. A silent communication seemed to pass between them, and Luna's babbling suddenly ceased. She turned to her mother with an expression of such profound understanding that Olivia gasped. "Bear," Luna said again, but this time followed by a new word. "Save." The ghostly father pointed urgently toward the hole. "There is another way to the nursery, a hidden staircase behind the library shelves. Originally built as an escape route, it will take you directly to her." Noah immediately began examining the bookshelves, pushing and pulling at various sections until a portion of the wall swung outward with a groan of ancient hinges. Beyond lay a narrow, spiral staircase, descending into darkness. "Hurry," the ghost urged. "The house cannot stand much longer." The mother bear seemed to understand what was happening. She approached the hidden staircase, sniffing at the entrance, then looked back at the humans with what could only be described as hope in her dark eyes. Olivia took a deep breath, clutching Luna close to her chest. "Let's go." They descended the winding stairs, the mother bear following carefully behind them. Luna's blue glow lit their way, revealing cobweb-covered walls inscribed with strange symbols, protective wards from another era, designed to shield the nursery from harm. At the bottom of the staircase, they found themselves in a short corridor ending at an ornate wooden door. Unlike the rest of the mansion, this door appeared perfectly preserved, its surface carved with images of forest animals and protective symbols. The music box melody grew louder as they approached, its tinkling notes now clearly recognizable as Brahms' lullaby. Noah reached for the doorknob, but paused when he noticed it was shaped like a bear's head. This place was never just a nursery, he realized. It was some kind of sanctuary. The mother bear pushed past them, pressing her nose against the door with a whine of recognition. Luna reached out as well, her tiny hand touching the bear-shaped knob. With a click that seemed to echo throughout the mansion, the door swung open. The hidden nursery revealed itself, a perfectly preserved time capsule from another era. The wallpaper's woodland creatures seemed almost alive in the blue light emanating from Luna, their painted eyes following the visitors. The shelves of antique toys, the rocking chair in the corner, the changing table with neatly folded baby clothes, all appeared ready for use, untouched by the decades of decay that plagued the rest of the mansion. And in the center, the ornate cradle, with Rusty curled inside, looking up at them with wide, frightened eyes. The mother bear rushed forward with a joyful sound, nuzzling her cub with such relief that even Noah and Olivia felt tears forming. Rusty responded with equal enthusiasm, licking his mother's face and making happy little noises. But their reunion was interrupted by an ominous rumble from above. The entire mansion shuddered violently, and dust poured from cracks appearing in the nursery ceiling. "We need to get out now," Noah shouted over the growing noise. The ghostly family had followed them down the stairs and now stood in the doorway. Elizabeth, the spectral child, approached the cradle with an expression of longing. She reached out toward it, her translucent fingers passing through the wooden edge. Luna squirmed in Olivia's arms, reaching toward the ghost child with such insistence that Olivia was forced to step closer to the cradle. When Luna and Elizabeth were just inches apart, something extraordinary happened. The blue glow surrounding Luna extended to envelop the ghost child as well, creating a bridge of light between them. Through this connection, a series of images flashed before everyone present. A newborn baby, blue with cold, being placed in the cradle, frantic parents trying to warm her, the blizzard howling outside as life slipped away, and decades of waiting, watching, hoping for someone to find her, to acknowledge her brief existence. Luna touched the empty space beside Rusty in the cradle, then looked up at Elizabeth with a smile of pure compassion. "Bear save," she said clearly. Understanding dawned on Olivia's face. The bear cub, he's been keeping her company. All these years, the nursery waited for a child, and it found one in him. The mother bear, seeming to comprehend the situation with impossible awareness, gently nudged Rusty. The cub looked up at his mother, then at the ghostly child. With deliberate movement, he shifted to one side of the cradle, making space where Luna had pointed. Elizabeth's ghostly form began to change, becoming more solid, more infant-like, regressing to the newborn she had been. The blue light intensified around her until she was almost as bright as Luna herself. She needed to be acknowledged, Noah whispered in realization, to be properly laid to rest. A deafening crack from above shattered the moment. A large piece of ceiling collapsed at the far end of the nursery, sending the antique toys crashing to the floor. "We have to go now." Noah grabbed Olivia's arm, pulling her toward the door. The mother bear had already scooped Rusty from the cradle and was heading for the exit. But Luna wasn't finished. She reached out one last time toward the ghostly infant, now glowing as brightly as a star. "Bye-bye," she said clearly, her third new word of the night. The spectral baby began to fade, not into nothingness but into a warm, golden light that spread throughout the room, temporarily pushing back the encroaching destruction. The ghostly parents stood in the doorway, their expressions transforming from sorrow to peace as they too began to dissolve into the same golden radiance. "Thank you," the mother's voice echoed as her form dispersed. "She can rest now. We all can." The nursery began to collapse in earnest, walls cracking and ceiling beams giving way. Noah scooped up both Olivia and Luna in his arms and ran for the spiral staircase, the mother bear and her cub right beside them. They raced upward as the stairs crumbled behind them, emerging into the library just as the floor where the nursery had been collapsed entirely. "The main entrance!" Noah shouted over the cacophony of destruction. "It's our only chance." They ran through the disintegrating mansion, dodging falling debris and leaping over widening cracks in the floor. The mother bear led the way, her powerful form clearing obstacles and guiding them through the maze of collapsing corridors. They burst through the front doors just as the mansion's central structure gave way with a thunderous roar. The force of the collapse sent them tumbling onto the gravel driveway, Luna protected between her parents' bodies as they fell. For several long moments they lay there in the rain, gasping for breath, as the once grand Blackwood mansion crumbled into a pile of timber and stone behind them. The storm, too, began to subside, the clouds parting to reveal the first hints of dawn breaking on the horizon. Noah helped Olivia to her feet, both of them checking Luna for any injuries. To their relief, she appeared completely unharmed, and the strange blue glow had faded entirely. She was once again just their ordinary, if precocious, 11-month-old daughter. The mother bear stood a few yards away, Rusty held protectively in her jaws. Rather than fleeing immediately into the forest, she remained, watching the human family with an intensity that transcended normal animal behavior. Slowly, carefully, she placed Rusty on the ground and nudged him forward. The cub hesitated, then took a few tentative steps toward Luna, who squirmed in her mother's arms with excitement. "Bear!" Luna exclaimed happily, reaching toward the cub. Olivia, though still wary, knelt down to bring Luna closer to eye level with Rusty. The two infants, one human, one bear, regarded each other with fascination. Rusty tilted his head, making a soft, chuffing sound that might have been the bear equivalent of Luna's babbling. "They saved each other," Noah said softly, crouching beside his family. Somehow, they both knew what needed to be done. The mother bear approached cautiously, her massive form a reminder of the danger she could pose. But there was no aggression in her movements, only a strange sense of acknowledgement. She sniffed at Luna once, her hot breath ruffling the baby's hair, then gently collected Rusty and turned toward the forest. At the edge of the trees, the bear paused for one final look back. The first true rays of morning sunlight broke through the clouds, illuminating the scene in golden light reminiscent of the glow that had consumed the ghostly family. For just a moment, so briefly that later, both Noah and Olivia would question if they had imagined it. The light around the mother bear and her cub seemed to form the silhouette of a human family. A man, a woman, and a small child, walking hand in hand into the light. Then they were gone, leaving only the swaying branches as evidence of their passage. Luna watched them go with a contented expression, her earlier distress completely vanished. "Bye-bye," she repeated softly, waving her tiny hand at the empty forest. Olivia clutched her daughter close, overwhelmed by the night's events. "Do you think she'll remember any of this when she's older?" Noah put his arm around his wife's shoulders, his scientific worldview forever altered by what they had witnessed. "I don't know, but I think some part of her will always carry this night with her." They turned toward the groundskeeper's cottage, which had somehow remained untouched by both the storm and the mansion's collapse. As they walked, Luna rested her head on her mother's shoulder, her eyes heavy with exhaustion after the night's extraordinary events. Just before they reached the cottage door, she spoke once more. A single word that sent chills down her parents' spines. "Elizabeth," she murmured, before drifting into peaceful sleep. Noah and Olivia exchanged glances but said nothing. Some mysteries, they silently agreed, were best left unexplored. Instead, they entered the cottage, closed the door behind them, and held each other close as the new day dawned, a family forever changed by one stormy night in a haunted house. Behind them, where Blackwood Mansion had stood for over a century, the rising sun illuminated not just a pile of rubble, but a single, intact structure emerging from the ruins. The nursery's ornate cradle, somehow preserved while everything around it had crumbled to dust. And in the forest beyond, a mother bear led her cub home, both of them walking with a lighter step, as if a burden neither knew they carried had finally been lifted. The ancient woods seemed to welcome them back with a gentle rustle of leaves, the last whispers of spirits finally at rest. But the connection forged that night, between the natural and supernatural, between human and animal, between the living and the dead, would remain, unseen but unbroken, a reminder that in moments of greatest innocence, the most extraordinary bridges can be built. For what could be more shocking, more powerful, than the simple, pure-hearted bravery of a baby who saw not differences, but souls in need, whether human, animal, or something in between? As the sun climbed higher in the morning sky, casting golden light across the ruins of Blackwood Mansion, something remarkable happened. Where the imposing structure had once stood, wildflowers began to emerge from the debris. Impossible blooms that should have taken months to grow, yet were unfurling their petals in minutes. Blue forget-me-nots, white lilies, and pink wild roses spread in a perfect circle around the preserved cradle, nature reclaiming the space with life rather than decay. The park rangers arrived an hour later, responding to the emergency signal Noah had sent from their car radio. They found the Chen family sitting quietly on the steps of the groundskeeper's cottage, watching the wildflower phenomenon with peaceful acceptance that belied the trauma they should have experienced. "Been camping here all night?" the lead ranger asked incredulously, surveying the ruins. "You're lucky to be alive. The old mansion must have finally given way in the storm." Noah and Olivia exchanged knowing glances, but offered only a simplified version of events. Some truths were too extraordinary for official reports. Luna, now awake and alert in her mother's arms, showed no fear or distress, only a serene contentment unusual for a child her age. When a butterfly with iridescent blue wings landed on her finger, she giggled with delight, watching as it fluttered toward the forest edge before disappearing into the trees. As they prepared to leave with the rangers, Olivia noticed something strange about the wildflowers surrounding the cradle. They were arranged in an unmistakable pattern, the outline of a bear cub curled beside a sleeping infant. And at the edge of this floral portrait, barely visible unless one knew to look for it, 3 sets of footprints led away toward the forest, one large, one small, and one tiny, as if a family had walked hand in hand into the wilderness. The local newspaper would later report the mysterious collapse of the haunted Blackwood Mansion, with a small note about the unusual wildflower bloom that followed. Experts would be baffled by the rapid growth and unique pattern of the flowers, some even suggesting they formed the shape of a cradle when viewed from above. Tourists and curiosity seekers would visit the site, taking photos and spinning their own theories about what had happened, but only 3 people would know the complete truth, and one of them was still too young to fully comprehend what she had experienced. 6 months later, on a crisp autumn day, the Chen family returned to the site. The groundskeeper's cottage had been renovated into a small visitor center, with educational displays about local wildlife and the history of the Blackwood estate. The wildflowers had continued to thrive long past their natural season, forming a vibrant garden where the mansion had stood. Luna, now 17 months old and walking with confidence, pulled away from her parents' hands and toddled directly to the center of the flower circle, where the cradle had once been. Though the rangers had removed the antique furniture months ago for preservation in a local museum, Luna seemed to know exactly where it had stood. She knelt in the flowers, her small fingers gently touching the blooms, before looking up toward the forest edge with expectation. Noah was about to call her back when movement at the tree line caught his attention. A mother bear emerged from the shadows, watching them cautiously. Beside her trotted a familiar cub, now significantly larger but still recognizable as Rusty. "Noah," Olivia whispered, clutching her husband's arm. "It's them." They stood frozen, frightened for their daughter, yet somehow knowing she wasn't in danger. Luna rose to her feet, smiling at the bears without a trace of fear. "Bear," she called happily, her vocabulary now much expanded, but this particular word still holding special significance. The mother bear made no move to approach, keeping a respectful distance that acknowledged the boundary between their worlds. But Rusty took a few curious steps forward, tilting his head as he had that fateful night. For a breathless moment, the cub and the toddler regarded each other across the flower-filled clearing, two young souls forever connected by an extraordinary experience. Then, with gentle deliberation, both child and cub raised their right paws in mirror images of each other, a wave of recognition and farewell. A soft breeze swept through the clearing, carrying with it the faintest melody. Notes so delicate they might have been imagined, yet unmistakably familiar to those who had heard the nursery's music box. The wildflowers swayed in rhythm, their petals releasing a subtle, shimmering pollen that caught the sunlight like tiny stars. And there, just for an instant, so briefly that later, Noah and Olivia would wonder if it had been a trick of the light, 3 translucent figures appeared beside Luna. A Victorian gentleman, his wife, and between them a small child about Luna's age, holding a spectral bear cub in her arms. They smiled at the Chen family, their forms gradually dissolving into the same golden light that had filled the nursery during those final moments. The last to fade was Elizabeth, who reached out to touch Luna's cheek in a gesture of eternal gratitude before merging with the dancing pollen in the air. Luna's delighted laugh rang out across the clearing as she spun in circles, arms outstretched as if dancing with an invisible friend. The mother bear nudged Rusty gently, and the cub reluctantly turned away. With one final glance back at Luna, he followed his mother into the depths of the forest, disappearing among the trees. Luna watched them go with perfect understanding in her eyes that had glimpsed beyond the veil and would forever see the world differently because of it. "Bye-bye, Rusty," she said clearly. "Bye-bye, Elizabeth." As they walked back to their car, Luna falling asleep against her father's shoulder, Olivia noticed something tucked into her daughter's small hand. A perfect blue feather that hadn't been there before, shimmering with an inner light that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. "Should we take it from her?" Noah asked quietly. Olivia considered the feather, then shook her head. "I think it's a gift. A reminder." "Of what?" She smiled, tears of wonder and gratitude forming in her eyes. "That the boundaries we think exist between worlds are thinner than we imagine. That innocence can see truth when wisdom is blind. That sometimes the most extraordinary miracles come from the simplest acts of compassion." The feather glowed softly against Luna's palm as she slept, its blue light matching perfectly the flowers that continued to bloom where a haunted house had once stood. Flowers that would never wither, never fade, keeping eternal watch over a place where, for one remarkable night, the lost had been found, the broken had been made whole, and a baby's pure heart had shocked the very fabric of reality itself. And in the forest, a bear cub dreamed of cradles and lullabies, of golden light and blue eyes, carrying within him the impossible memory of the night he had been lost and found and changed forever in a house that was no longer haunted. Some stories end, Others transform, but the most extraordinary ones live on, blooming like wildflowers after a storm, reminding us that in the space between heartbeats, between worlds, between life and what lies beyond, there exist connections stronger than time itself, forged in moments of perfect innocence, perfect need, and perfect love. What could be more shocking, after all, than discovering that the truest magic lies not in ghostly apparitions or supernatural phenomena, but in the limitless capacity of an innocent heart to bridge the unbridgeable, to see the unseeable, and to save what cannot be saved? Nothing, perhaps, except the realization that such magic lives within us all, waiting only for the courage to embrace it.